Welcome to Messy Liberation.
Let's get started. Hello. Hopping in with a very quick little addition to the episode you're about to hear, because right after we recorded it, we found out that beloved Dolly Parton died today, or maybe yesterday, depending on when you're hearing this or when I get it out. But just felt like important enough news to share. And I'll just quickly say that in my mind, Dolly Parton is proof that if white people want to, they will.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say about her?
Yeah, if anybody wants to, they will. Such a loss, not just like in the music industry and the music community and the arts, but just as a human being. Like, she was proof, that like doesn't matter where you came from, what your upbringing was, what the color of your skin was, or what was in your pants, or anything of that nature. Like you said, if they want to, they will. So it's really sad. I know she's been in at least for us, like we've seen her a lot in the news, like over the past like week or two for like various projects or like different like highlights and things like that. And so it's very disorienting news, like a very, very big loss to just humanity in general.
Yeah, her husband, who she adored, died like a year and a half or something ago, and she had been his caretaker for a while. And so I saw something about her saying that like some of her own health issues she had set aside a bit to help him through the end of his life. I know a lot of people are thinking the two of them, maybe they're together again, and that, it was really a love of her life. So we can hope maybe that's true. But just want to mention, obviously, her library program or her books program for children for literacy was amazing. She was also somebody who deeply believed in vaccines and helped to be a part of the cure, or not the cure, but the vaccine for COVID. And she was instrumental in that with really putting money behind her talk. She was willing to stand up for folks even when the industry in which she existed and the modern kind of country scene had turned very much against her politics. She wasn't in this episode. You're going to hear us say people who don't, about how they aren't showing their values change with the politics, and she was not one to have that happen.
Yeah, she was always very, very firm in her values, regardless of how people might have misinterpreted that or interpreted it or reacted or responded. She was like, nope, this is who I am and this is what I believe, and the rest of y'all can just, fuck off.
Exactly. And I think she said pretty much that. I mean, it was darn close. She was not afraid to say what she felt. And she was a pioneer in country music and a pioneer in so many other ways. And so she will be missed. I audibly gasped when I saw the news. You were pretty shaken up by it too. So as much as I see a lot of white women saying things, I've also noticed online already a lot of Black women saying like, we need more Dollys and less Caitlin Clarks. So she will be very much missed.
Yeah.
All right. We hope you enjoy our regularly scheduled episode, and thank you for listening. Hello, Taina.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm okay. I'm all right.
Well, you look good.
Thanks.
Which is good, because I know you had a rough week, so I'm glad to see you are up and at 'em.
Yeah. How are you?
My kid returned to school today, so smiling and ready. Schools
you
are back.
Your days back.
Yes, schools are back in session. I have my days back. I couldn't have been more like leisurely and happy this morning, just like taking my time getting back to my office. And now I'm thinking about all the ways I want to redo my office. And just, I feel like I'm returning to that headspace after the summer of like, just trying to stay afloat.
Awesome.
Well, I thought today that maybe we could talk about what happens when advertisers are set free to do what they want to do, and when there's not the right mix of people. I suspect there's not the right mix of people in the room when they're making decisions about advertising, because there's a couple of big stories that have just come out in the last few days that sort of really exemplify this issue. One was first Callaway Sports, which is a big name in the golfing world. I don't know much about golf. It's not my area.
Yeah.
So I would have probably not seen the story if not for social media, because I don't care much about golf. But they partnered with another company. So there's probably their first problem. However, both companies signed off on and approved and released on social media a video ad that basically showed a man striking a woman who tried to touch his golf club. And the whole thing was, don't use my driver. Humorously depicting abuse, right? And I guess they thought that was a good idea. They put it out, and immediately, with reason, women were like, yo, this is not cool. This isn't funny. This isn't just a humorous ad. You're making light of domestic violence, of assault, of harming women. And there were many women who brought this issue up. And I think that Callaway may have lost sight of the fact that many, many, many women also play golf and are also using their products. And then I think maybe the next day, or maybe the same day even, Target, which has been the subject of so many issues in recent years. I haven't shopped in a Target in over 2 years, as many other people have not. But they released a new product for Halloween, a Halloween costume. It was a quote unquote ghost that had a mouth.
It was supposed to be a ghost?
I think they called it clown. It was a clown. I'm so sorry. A clown. Yeah. You're right. And it had a mouth, like this exaggerated, almost like a Cheshire cat kind of a grin. I'm trying to, like, for people who can't see me, it's like a big oversized mouth. And
the red lips.
Yes. Red lips. Immediately, many Black folks said, yo, not cool. This is hearkening back to, and really for many people feeling clearly related to, the days of minstrel shows and that kind of depiction of Black folks in quote unquote comedy or other kinds of program. I guess minstrel shows were considered comedy, right? So both of these ads were meant to be, one was an ad, one was a product, but they, the company was releasing advertising about it. And in both cases, it's a company that really missed the mark. I think one was meant to be, the costume was meant to be fun, right? And whoever decided, yeah, that's a good idea, thought probably, oh, that's no big deal. It's a great little costume. How fun. And then with the ad, I think they thought it was supposed to be, humorous, hilarious.
Yeah.
And both just really missed the mark.
Yeah.
Completely. Right. And were just didn't seem to understand an audience beyond white and men, whiteness and maleness, right? These were the targets of those audiences without understanding broader context. So I shared some of it with you. I mean, since then, Target has apologized. Callaway has apologized. They both are saying this doesn't reflect our values. We've missed the mark. We'll do better. We're going to listen and learn. In the case of Target, we know they don't listen and learn. It wasn't that long ago.
Because it's like every fucking Halloween, Target is in the news for
and don't forget
like
Pride as well, right? Which is also what has gotten them into hot water. And so, yeah, we know that Target has a clear history of not listening and learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Callaway, I don't know enough to know. So, maybe they'll listen and learn, but they both have sort of done the perfunctory, we're sorry, we missed the mark, we'll do better, we're going to learn from this.
Yeah.
This isn't who we are. It's always it's not who we are, which is interesting too.
Yeah.
So, anyway, wonder what you thought about those.
Yeah.
Things.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know anything about Good, that the company that put out the golf driver and that ad, but I'm obviously more familiar with Target, and I think it's quite what's the word I'm looking for? It's just funny that this literally happens at least once a year, and every time they're like, these are not our values. Well, it's become a fucking pattern, so apparently it is, right? And then here's the thing, right? Here's what I was thinking about this morning when you sent me the text about this. Minstrel shows, not everybody knows what minstrel shows are, right? And so it's very possible that someone in that creative space for Target created this costume without knowing what this could potentially tie back to, right? There could even have been a Black person. There could have been multiple Black people. Like I'm Black. I didn't find out what minstrel shows were until I was in my 30s. You know what I mean? So like, it's very possible that like for representation's sake, they have what appears to be the right people in the room, but on such a shallow level that nobody put two and two together. Nobody thought, well, our customer base might have a different experience, or our customer base might know things that the people in this room don't know. And this is why it's so important to not just hire or work with people based on how they fucking look, right? Like you really have to know I don't want to say the politics, but you really have to know like who's in the room, like what's their experience, like what's their history, right? Like all that to say, you have to do your due fucking diligence, right? You can't just be like, we got 3 Black people in the room, check, right? Because while, yes, that's great, like you should, I'm not advocating that you shouldn't be hiring people because, because they're Black and be like, oh, well, just because they're Black, they're not going to know anything. Like, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like, that's like the first fucking step. Like, there has to be more work done beyond that, right? Because like, if I were in my 20s and I were in that room, I might have approved that. I might have been like, yeah, sure, looks good. Because I had no idea what that could potentially tie back to, right? And being in my 20s, like knowing the person who I was, like I might not have done the due diligence to be like, well, maybe we should test this with, with a different, client base, with a different like sample, right? Of our target, customer base and see how people react to it, right? Like there are things that could be done to prevent this from happening that just simply were not done. Or if they were done very poorly, right? Because there's market testing, there's making sure the right people are in the room, right? Like I think sometimes people don't understand like what it looks like to take a product from conception to market. Like there's a lot of work that goes into that. There should be anyway. And sometimes it just feels like that's not the case. Like they're just like throwing things out there just willy-nilly without any real intention or thought behind it. So I'm honestly not surprised at the Target thing. Like at this point, it's almost like one of those things. It's like, well, how is Target gonna fuck up this year for Halloween or for Pride or for Black History Month or for whatever?
Well, and I sent you a text too, or a tweet or whatever, a thread from Ben Crump, who's a pretty famous attorney who steps in often in cases of racism and often with like police abuse and things like that. But he said, this costume made it through Target's entire design, production, and merchandising process without a single person stopping it. This is exactly what happens when you dismantle DEI and call it a business decision, which I thought was really on point because it's not, but I think your point is sort of even goes beyond that. If it's not just saying we're dismantling DEI in the sense that we're thinking about equity and inclusion in who we hire, but also as we think about the products we're developing and the ways we're talking about our business, like there's sensitivities in there that you need the right people in the room to be thinking about those things. And you can't just have one Black person and say that's then we've done it. For exactly the reasons you're saying, it has to be somebody who actually understands broader context. And that can't just be one. I don't think it should be just one person, but if it's going to be one person, it needs to be one person who actually has done like their studies on, gender and race relations or something like that, right? Where it's
and who holds power and who holds power, because it could be one Black person in a room full of 12 white people,
right?
And what kind of power does that person hold?
Yep,
does that one Black person hold?
That was my thought on the Callaway, because I was going to sort of try to match your energy on it could have been me, and I can see how it could happen in that. Because for me, if I really put myself in my 20-something, early 30-something space where I was one of those women, which I now understand was about seeking proximity to power. At the time, I didn't understand that. But I was one of those, I'm not like the other girls. I'm a guy's gal. Yeah, I'll engage in all of that inappropriate humor in the workplace because I'm cool and I get it. And, everybody else is being so sensitive and whatever, right? Like, because I now see that was my way of trying to gain access and power by saying, yeah, I can show up and be more like this. I won't be one of those women who are too sensitive or whatever, not realizing that ultimately I'm harming women by doing that. Yeah. But when you're 20 and you don't know better and it's your first time in the work environment, or if or if you really need the job, right? Because you got to pay the bills. There's a million reasons why we show up that way and why a woman might see that Callaway ad and say like,
it's funny.
Yeah, it's funny, whatever, because we see that also in the way women vote, right? Especially white women. We see that in the way that women go and support comedians like CK, whatever the fuck his name, Louis CK, or, all of these kinds of folks who show up to support quote unquote comedy that's often at their own expense, this like punching down kind of comedy. and don't want to be told the things that I now hear because I won't engage in that kind of, I'm not that same woman who used to be like, oh yeah, I'm not like the other girls. Now that I'm like, no, I'm here to fight for all the girls, right?
Yeah.
I'm not, I am one of those girls and I'm going to be your worst nightmare. Now I get told all the time, you're no fun. You must be fun at a party, that kind of bullshit that we get. And that's really hard when you're dealing with the day-to-day in a workplace. I don't have to deal with the day-to-day workplace. I can deal with it now, right? But I also can put myself in that place where, yeah, you've got one woman in the room full of men, because I did see the good team, a photo that was posted of them. It may not be the exact team, but it was a photo of about 10 all-white men in their 30s. The kinds of guys I might expect to make that kind of humor, right?
Yeah.
And I could see being the only white woman in that room, again, no power or little power and pressure and knowing I have to show up every day at work with these guys. And if I'm that person, then I get to hear about how I'm no fun, or I don't get invited to things. I don't get promotions. I get pushed out. I have no friends in the workplace. I can see how it happens.
Yeah. Or even if you say, no, this is not a good idea, you get outvoted because you're the only one.
And they'll say you're just being sensitive, or, oh, you're no fun, or whatever, right? And exactly. And so all that to say, it's not that it excuses it, like you said, but it's a corporate responsibility, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, good. The people who made the ads, the person who designed the costume at Target, whatever the things are, they hold responsibility. But the ultimate responsibility lies at that corporate level. That's about what is the culture we're creating here?
Yeah.
How are we showing that? Like, you can say this isn't what I value, but if it's able to get out, it is what you value, right? Like it's clear that inside of your corporation, your values are not clear that was not acceptable. Right? Yeah. It should have never been something that would happen. There shouldn't be a room full of men who are joking about domestic violence in any way. Like that, I don't believe that ad is probably the first time that the kinds of people that created that ad have been making those kinds of jokes in the workplace.
Yeah.
I just don't believe that.
Yeah. And here's the thing that bewildered me too about that ad. Like, it's also just not fucking good. Like, I don't get it.
I don't get it.
Like, is it, I feel like in a way it's supposed to be funny, but also in a way it's supposed to be like the way that they set it up, the entire like the soundscape of it. Like, I feel like they're doing like a parody of like a horror movie. Like it felt like, cause like the woman touches it, a guy comes over, throws her on the ground and is like, don't touch my driver. And then like another guy goes to touch it and they're like, no, don't do it. Like, and then he touches it and he gets like this weird look on his face. And then like all this stuff is happening. And I'm just like, this also just as a concept was just not well thought out in general. Like there's no real concept happening here.
I feel like it was meant to look like a TikTok video or something. Like it was meant to look lower rent, maybe.
Well, like, yeah, I got that. Like I got because you said it was on social media, so I'm like, okay, so I feel like a lot of it was ads that pop up on social media are meant to a lot of corporately paid for ads or corporately designed ads that show up on social media these days are meant to look like user generated content, right? Where it's like they just paid an influencer to do it. And so it has this like homegrown organic feel to it. And so like, I got that, but there's like the technicalities of it where I'm like, at one point, it feels like it's supposed to be funny. And at another point, it feels like it's supposed to be a parody of like a horror movie, almost like a Get Out or a Nope kind of thing, which feels really weird because there are no Black people in the ad whatsoever. It's just a bunch of white dudes wearing blue. And everyone's wearing like a uniform, basically. It's like blue with khaki. Like that's like the uniform. And so
probably a fairly accurate representation of most golf clubs.
Yeah.
Not
for
golf
sure.
clubs, but golf, places you play golf.
Culture, just in general. Yeah. And so just in the from the creative side of things, it also was just not well executed.
No, I thought it was horrible and it wasn't funny. I don't get where it's funny. And even if so then let's say maybe it was meant to be a horror thing. I still don't think that was, like you said, well done.
It didn't hit. Yeah. It didn't hit at all.
And yet someone said, let's put this out. Which then does also make you start to, if you want to get into your conspiracy shoes just a little bit, wonder, because like you said, a lot of this content is put out that like these corporations are working with these other folks to put out content And often what they're looking for in that like user-generated content can be stuff that is edgier than they would probably have created if it went through their layers of the advertising departments and traditional advertising agencies. It's often stuff that's going to be more edgy, more controversial, get that kind of like the scroll-stopping, click-worthy, clickbait kind of stuff, which then makes you wonder, like, because you have to wonder what at Callaway they said, yeah, this is a great idea, let's put this out. And that makes you start to think, like, could it be because they knew it would do this?
Yeah.
Because who was talking about Callaway last week?
Nobody. I had never heard of Callaway or Good or whoever.
So it does beg the question a little bit of like, okay, if this isn't your value set, and then how in the hell did it get out, right? Why did it get approved? And it does start to make you wonder, is it because you knew this might happen?
Yeah. It's kind of like a Trumpian approach, right? To advertising. It's like any news is good news, and you just got to keep the scandals coming to keep people talking about you.
As long as your name is out there, right? Like, it doesn't matter why they're using your name, they're using your name, and more people know Callaway now than they did a week ago.
Yeah.
And
it's about notoriety, right?
And let's be honest, who plays golf? You know, on the whole, it is a white male sport. Now, there are many women who play, and so I do not want to in any way say they don't. And I don't know the numbers, I should look them up. But I have a feeling the numbers remain, because just to be clear, and not because men are better at it or for any reason other than one, it's an expensive sport. It's very pricey to play, not necessarily the equipment, although that too, but just being on a golf green is expensive, right?
Yeah, because you have to have a membership.
Yep. Or you have to pay a high fee to go to a public course. It takes a long time to play a game of golf, so you have to have more leisure in your life, which excludes a lot of people who can't afford to have that kind of leisure, right? So there's that. And the other bigger structural systemic issue is that many golf clubs for much of our history excluded women and black folks. Women and basically anyone who wasn't white men weren't allowed to play golf on most courses. So the access was that was a huge barrier until very recently. I mean, the Masters in my lifetime finally allowed black folks to play, right? Like, I remember how the Masters Augusta National was still a whites only course, like, I think until like maybe the 80s, 90s. Yeah. Like, it was ridiculous. So there are a lot of barriers that have made it so that this remains a largely white male dominated sport.
Yeah. Well, golf courses are usually part of country clubs, which are modeled after plantations. So there's all about that whole history there. So they're quite racist.
Exactly. So it makes you also then wonder, does Callaway genuinely care? Like, you have, just from a like logical standpoint, one has to look at this and say, you say this doesn't align with your values, yet somehow this managed to be approved and get out. So is there some part of me that thinks, could it potentially be because they knew this would happen?
Yeah.
And their ideal audience ultimately doesn't care that much. And in many ways, I have a feeling many of them are the people who can't stand DEI, who can't stand the woke agenda, who in their minds, they're like, oh, this backlash makes me want to support Callaway more, right? I don't mean to get too conspiratorial. However, it does beg.
But we don't know. That's the thing.
It begs the question.
Yeah, we don't know. And in this day and age of misinformation and disinformation, and people literally, companies and politicians and celebrities doing things for shock value, like, this seems like the logical conclusion, right? Or it seems like it could potentially be a logical conclusion to this whole fiasco. So I looked up the National Golf Foundation and year-end data for 2024. It shows that more than 1/4 of green grass golfers in the U.S. are women and girls or people of color.
Or people of color.
Right. So those are all grouped together.
Yeah, which really says something. That means 75% are white men. So as I'm saying,
listen, it gets better. Among the 28.1 million Americans who played golf on a golf course in 2024.
Which is pretty much the only way you can play golf on a golf course.
The most since 2008. 28% were female and 25% were Black, Asian, or Hispanic. So they grouped Black, Asian, and Hispanic as 25%. Those three make up 25%, and then 28% were female. These numbers not mutually exclusive.
Right.
Which
so there's overlap in there.
There's overlap there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All the women of color are included in both those categories.
Yeah.
So that reduces it. Yeah.
These numbers reflect the continued evolution of the sports participant base, particularly when compared to historical benchmarks.
Yeah, but which is amazing that in the year of our Lord 2026, that is considered the proof of progress.
Yeah.
Right?
Out of 28.1 million. What's 25% of 28.1 million?
A little over 5 million, which is still not a small amount. And why there is outrage amongst many of those women who watched this and said, hey, we play. I saw a woman on Threads who said, my daughter loves golf. She's a young girl. I think she was maybe 14 or younger. As I recall, she was young. Mm-hmm. And her mom said, she's like, I'm a single mom who survived domestic violence. I am going to be getting rid of my daughter's Callaway clubs. What should I be buying? What other companies can tell me this is not the way you show up in the world, right? Like,
yeah.
And so many people were liking that and sharing that. And to say there are many young women there are many women who play, young women who are trying to play, who are looking for people to look up to. And this is what they're being greeted with. And if that's what the company is willing to do, what's happening on golf courses when these women and girls are out there, especially women of color that are out there. And we know, like, you see this happen in all sorts of things where women of color are trying to show up and go hiking or do any. Yeah. I mean, it just met with so many challenges. Yeah. And we don't need to add to it here. And to go back to Target a little bit, just to say, like, at some point, my same conspiratorial hat gets put on of like, at how many times do we see Target do the same thing year over year and not start to think, oh, is this just Target's annual? Let's see if we can get people in a tizzy so that we get our MAGA shoppers out in force. I don't know. Like, that is not the Target that I thought I knew years ago. Yeah. That really did seem to value. I mean, they were early in this bandwagon of like supporting, having LGBTQ and Pride merchandise and having an entire Pride month and Pride displays. They were very much on having Black-owned business displays and working with Black-owned businesses and getting those products into their stores. I don't know what happened. The only thing that one could think that happened is they read the tea leaves and said, Trump is in power. This movement is taking off. We need to speak to those people. We're going to pivot. Yeah. And it feels almost like when we start to see this year over year, it feels intentional. And then if suddenly this man who now I'm pretty sure is making it clear he has no plans to leave office, but if he were to leave office and things do change, are they just going to go the way the wind blows again? And that goes to the point of, don't tell me it's your value set. Your values don't shift with the winds. Your values don't shift with what's happening in the marketplace. That's not values, that's capitalism.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say. Then at that point, it's clear that you value capitalism above all else, right? Like, that there is no moral compass, there is only the bottom line. And I think you bring up a good point about how politics, right? Like literal politics, right? Affect how companies operate. And so this move, right, that we've been experiencing for like the past decade towards like more conservatism and fascism and all of that, like it is showing up in the ways that these big companies operate. It is showing up in the way, and that trickles down, right? Not just from like who's in the boardroom and who's the CEO and those decisions, but like advertising decisions, products, right? Like how they respond to public outrage, right? It also affects it affects so many things, right? Like it's all interconnected. Like this isn't isolated. Like this is happening because we are in this current political landscape. This isn't separate from what's happening like in Washington and in international politics and all of that. Like it's all connected. Like it's all connected. And so board members, CEOs of big companies, their job is to protect the bottom line. Their job is to make the business money. Like that's their job. And so they have to know what's happening in the world and how it's going to affect their business. Like if they didn't, they would be bad business people. Like that's just the nature of how business operates in a capitalist society, in a capitalist structure. And so to see these incidents as like benign or isolated or unrelated is incredibly naive, I think.
Yeah. I was just looking up too donations, and Callaway, so you can go to opensecrets.org for anybody who doesn't know what that is, where you can look up different corporations to see how they've been donating, Republican or whatever. And Callaway hasn't done a lot of donating. So small amount, it was like a little over, maybe it was $600 or something that is available anyway. It almost all went to Republicans. So that is interesting, but it's a small amount. So who knows, right? And Target is such a large corporation. They give a ton of money. And historically, they do give more to Democrats, but they don't not give to Republicans, right? They also give to, and in fact, I think in some of this, I'm trying to look if you can see the exact, because they give so much that it's hard to keep up with. But they don't hedge. They are hedging their bets, right? They donate to both parties, and both parties fairly equally, because this is what capitalism does. As you're saying, like, if your values aren't values if they can change based on who's in office. And I think just on the consumer end of things, if this stuff pisses you off, like the idea that we're back to shopping at Target, I've seen some people talking about that. I haven't. And guess what? My life has been just fine. I haven't shopped at Target in over 2 years since the sort of collective effort to boycott began. And I was a stockholder at that time. Not much. I think I had 2 shares in Target. and I since sold them for a major loss. Thankfully, it was only like 2 shares, because the ban worked. The shopping ban at Target has been working. They have been scrambling. Their stock has been going way down. They are feeling those effects. And to say, well, that's done then. Clearly it's not. Because clearly, exactly. And, if I were somebody who played golf, I wouldn't be using any Callaway products.
Yeah.
Then again, it's hard to know who you can trust, right?
Yeah, it is.
Ultimately, they're all like, if I'm not shopping at Target, where am I shopping?
Yeah.
There's Amazon, not any better.
Yeah.
Walmart, not any better. And so it's hard. Like, the bans can help and they do work. The problem, and this is the messy part, is, and we still exist inside of a system where everyone who gets to that level inside the system is not somebody you can trust. And so where you can, obviously shopping local or shopping small is the answer. But there are certain things where that becomes really hard. Buying golf clubs, very hard to
do locally. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's just not a product that's easily manufactured sold at a boutique kind of level, and certainly not at a price that most people would be able to afford. So these are the challenges we have to deal with. And I guess part of it is calling it out, right? The backlash, the fact that they've had to at least apologize, the fact that they know people are paying attention maybe makes some difference. I don't know. What do you think about on the consumer end of what do we do?
Yeah.
I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, I think because the boycott has worked so well with Target, I think that makes it extra surprising, or not surprising, but just wow, really? You guys still did that? Even with all the losses that you've encountered over the past few years. But I think from the consumer perspective, right? Local is the way to go. And then I will say this, there are moments, right, where I'm just if I go local, I'm not going to get exactly what I want. I'm going to be I'm going to have to compromise on something, right? Whether it's price, whether
almost
it's
always price,
aesthetic vibe that I'm going for,
selection,
right? Whether it's having a good selection or options to choose from. And that's just the nature of it, right? You're not necessarily going to find the exact same thing or the exact thing that you're looking for. And I think at the individual level, right, you have to decide for yourself, okay, what are the lines for you, in terms of price, options, availability, right? Because I could purchase something locally, but it might be an urgent need that I can't wait a week or two to get. So then Amazon might be my best bet, right?
Or I'm on a budget and I can't.
Or I'm on a budget, right?
Or I have a disability that keeps, or lack of transportation.
Right,
there's a million reasons.
Right. So I think the question or the goal is not necessarily to completely remove yourself from these structures, right? But as much as you can, move away from relying on these companies and these structures that will continue to perpetuate harm to most of us, really to all of us, because patriarchy hurts men, racism hurts white people, right? Like sexism, like no one leaves unscathed from these harmful structures. And so again, the goal is not to like completely remove yourself, but to try to lean as far away from it as possible, and to know that like that's not always going to be possible, and that's okay. Like we do the best that we fucking can, because at the end of the day, like me as an individual, I hold no power against a corporation like Target, like, or against a company like Amazon. Like the amount of power and wealth that these companies have accumulated is otherworldly compared to the amount of wealth and power that I have. And so to pit myself against a company and say my action will be equal to their action is unrealistic.
Losing you as a customer, they don't
fucking care.
They don't notice. Like they're not going to notice. No.
It's a drop in the hat. Like,
which is not an excuse to say. It's not an excuse to. It's not a way to just excuse ourselves from doing anything.
Yeah.
But it's also the acknowledgement of what the systems are, right?
Yeah.
Because I can never shop Amazon again, and they're going to be just fine. Like that's the truth of it. And I could never use a disposable. I could never use plastic again, and the planet's still going to.
Plastic is still going to pile up everywhere, right?
So it's that trying to put these things down to an individual level, which is where I think you and I both get a little frustrated sometimes with some of the like leftist rhetoric that can become very hyper fixated on calling out individuals.
Action, yeah.
Exactly. Where it's like, that's lovely.
That's unfair.
Like, yes, we should all be trying to do more. And it's missing the point. It's missing the mark and missing the point. Our ire, and it's us falling into their trap. It's what they want us to do. Because if we're worried about each other and policing each other, we're not policing the people who need to be policed. And the way we do that in a democracy, whether it's a democratic socialist state, which is what I would like to see, or the current democratic, theoretically, oligarchical state that we live in, we do still, for a while, even though they're trying to take away our mail-in voting rights, but we do for now have the power to say we elect people who will hold these companies to account. And we've been doing a piss poor job of that as individuals, right? That is where we need to collectively say our power goes. Collective boycotts are great as well, but ultimately, unless we change the system, it's not going to matter. We need to elect more Mamdanis and fewer Hakeem Jeffries, fewer Chuck Schumers, fewer Nancy Pelosi's. We need to get out the people who are as invested as the corporations are in seeing the corporations succeed, and more people who say, no, we're here about saying, how do we make sure that individual humans
people are taken care of,
thrive.
Yeah. It's unfair to put that pressure on any one individual, whether that individual is someone else or yourself, right? Like that's an unnecessary burden to be trying to carry. And so, like you said, it's not an excuse to be just like, oh, well, I guess I'll just, shop wherever I want to shop. Like, that's not the point. The point is, like, we're comparing apples to oranges. Like, it's not the same. It's not the same. And so do what you can, right? For yourself, for your family, in a way that feels good, that you feel like you can sleep at night and you're not, your conscience is clear and you're not compromising. But know that the reality is there's no escaping this. At this current time, there's no escaping it.
And think about it when you hit a ballot box.
Yeah.
Don't let your individual concerns affect how you show up at the ballot box. Because if you are somebody who votes and says, well, I care about all these things, but the thing that's going to affect my taxes the most, the thing that's going to affect my household bottom line the most, the thing that's going to make my life the most challenging, and you're only voting through that lens, then you're doing exactly what Callaway and Target and everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
Claiming to have a value set until it rubber meets the road, until it's about your bottom line, right?
Yeah.
Your values should not change at the ballot box based on how it affects your individual taxes, your individual property taxes. If you say you care about schools, then you vote to support schools, even if it does raise your property taxes, right? If you say that you care about human rights, then you vote for the candidates who support human rights, even if it does mean your taxes go up. This is what it looks like to say, I walk my values, and not just being another target that says, well, that didn't align with my values, but I did it anyway.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, go look up your local DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, or the Working Family Party, and go find meetings and get out there. Like, that is where we can affect change. And yes, shop somewhere else when you can. Absolutely. use your voice when you can, which is something else we didn't say. Like, if you have the ability without it being a threat to your safety to speak out on social media or to write a letter to the corporation president or to your representatives or to whomever to say this is not acceptable, our voices also matter, because when they hear enough, I mean, in a world of capitalism, if they're worried about their bottom line because they're hearing from enough people, they will make changes. So that is something we can do too. We use our voice, and our voice looks like how we vote. It looks like actually speaking truth to power in whatever public forums or even private forums that we can. And then it also looks like how we spend our money, but we can't make it only about how we spend our money.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, you know, if you're used to voting in your own self-interest and not in the interest of the larger community, like we're seeing now how that is backfiring for a lot of people. That's backfiring for people who own farms. That's backfiring for women, right? That's backfiring for older voters who, you know, voted red and their social security is now being threatened, their healthcare is being threatened, right? And so like it will come for everybody eventually, right? To think that you can vote one way to make yourself safe, like that's an illusion. That's not real.
Yeah.
That's not how capitalism works. Capitalism will eat any and everything to make money. And that includes you, regardless of how much wealth and privilege you have stored up for yourself. So,
yep. Just look at the humanoid robots. Eventually, it means literally every human. Until there's 3 people sitting at the top with their humanoid robot army, and the rest of us are what? I mean, we're fighting for scraps.
We were watching speaking of human robots, different tangent, but we were watching the news last night, and China just held
that's what made me think of it.
Robot Olympics or some shit like that.
It was. They do it every year.
I didn't know that was a thing. And so it was just so bizarre seeing these clips of like robots competing at these athletic events. And my wife was like, why would they want athletic robots? And I'm like, they don't want athletic robots. They want robots that can be athletic for military might. Like that's where this is going. Like, and it's not just China, right? Like eventually it's going to be everywhere if it's not already everywhere. Like they want soldiers who don't need to sleep, who don't need to eat, who can go 24/7.
Yeah.
And if they
who also
get destroyed, there's no real loss of life.
Who have no empathy.
Right.
How wonderful to have a fighting army that has literally no empathy. I mean, they try very hard to strip folks in the army of empathy or in the military of empathy, but they are still humans who do have some degree of empathy.
That's why people who see combat come back all fucked up.
Yeah.
Because there's that struggle between empathy and like having to disengage from a part of a humanity in order to like shoot at or be in conflict with someone else.
Now look what happens when you have troops that don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
100%. I agree. And it's very scary. And just look what's happening in the war right now with Ukraine and Russia. I mean, it has become almost entirely an operated by droid battle. The human part of it is often the civilian toll, but also military toll, who are people on bases and things. But most of what's happening as far as the actual warfare is droids. Is that the right word?
Drones?
Thank you. That's what I meant. Drones. I knew when I was saying, I was like, droids isn't right because that's like an android. But anyway, drones. Yeah. So it's a drone war.
Yeah.
That's happening. And that's what we're moving to, which does relate to what we're talking about in the fact that the more that we allow ourselves to strip our own humanity and allow corporations to continue to strip our humanity, and make no mistake, that Target ad and that Callaway ad, or that Target product and that Callaway ad, are both about stripping humanity from large sections of people, right? And when we say that's okay, and we say, yeah, you can do that and I'll still buy your products, we're stripping our own humanity away. We're doing the job for them. So
we are. And I just want to, say, if you are a business owner or small business owner, I know we talked a lot about like the responsibility of businesses and corporations to do things. And I think sometimes if you're a small business owner, you can be like, well, I don't have the means, right, to like have a DEI thing or whatever. And it's like, you don't have to do all that. Just do your due diligence. Just do your due diligence. Like, there are ways as a small business owner that you can make decisions that are aligned with your values, that aren't going to give people the wrong impression, that are going to not perpetuate harm, right? Without having to like have all this fancy stuff. Like, even big corporations, you don't have to have fucking DEI in your business model. If they just did their due diligence, they wouldn't fucking need it in the first place. Like the whole DEI thing was a stopgap to help combat like any kind of harm that was being done. But if they were doing their due diligence, the need for DEI wouldn't even exist.
Well, and make no mistake, all of those DEI efforts at those high corporate levels, I'm not talking at a smaller level, but that higher corporate level was not because they care about DEI.
No, it was all for optics.
Exactly. It was a response to where, again, because their values blow with the wind, because they're not actual values, it was a response to a 2020 world, right? And the response to George Floyd. And George Floyd, that happened in Minnesota. That's where Target's based. Of course, they responded in a way that would make sense for them economically. That's not values, right? So they are not a values-led company. If you're a values-led company at a small level, this won't be an issue for you anyway.
Yeah.
It just won't, because you're going to show up with your values, and the first time you step in it and cause harm, you're going to acknowledge that.
You're going to take accountability.
You're actually going to learn from it, and we won't see that same mistake happening from you. That's not what's happening with Target. I have a feeling it's not going to be what happens with Callaway. Don't know yet, but I have a feeling. So I appreciate what you're saying. Only to say that, I just think if you're actually operating out your values as a small business owner, it just won't even be an issue.
Yeah.
So thank you for talking about it.
Yeah, of course.
Have a great day.
Always fun.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Messy Liberation.
Will you please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen?
Taking that moment to do that will really help us reach a wider audience.
Thank you so much for your support and for listening today.
Until next time.